few loose ends, and then heading back to the UK tomorrow or the next day.
Very good. And Katy?
And I am in my office from Buckinghamshire, so just outside of Beaconsfield in a little village called Winchmore Hill.
Very good. Very good.
Freshly in tier 3.
Just gone into tier 3, so staying put.
Very good. And I hope you're as well stocked in booze as you are with luxury hand and body products behind you there, Katy.
There are 2 things our family will never run out of. And that is bubble bath and wine. And what else do you need in life?
Sometimes both, yeah. Wow. Okay, great. Well, welcome to everyone joining in tonight. We're live on Facebook and on Zoom. I'm Eamon, the wine guy. I'm delighted to be joined by Charles and Ruth Simpson from Domaine St. Rose and Simpson's Wine Estate, and Katy Simpson of Noble Isle. And yeah, very exciting year this year in our big Christmas case, where we hero these guys' amazing products, and really looking forward to finding more about them tonight. I'm on the Biora here, and I'm keeping my hands nicely moisturized as well. Let us know what you're drinking in the comments, and where you're watching from. And if you've got any questions for any of the guys, please use the Q&A. It can be about The Simpsons, can be about Christmas wine. Obviously, Christmas is around the corner. If you've want any tips or anything like that, feel free. Got a few experts here tonight. Yeah, why don't we crack into tasting these wines together and talking about Simpsons first, and maybe Charles and Ruth, for anyone who's not familiar with you guys and your story, can you take us back to the start and where it all began for you guys?
Super. Firstly, thanks very much, Eamon, and to Naked Wines for hosting us tonight, and great to share a platform with my sibling, my younger sister. I tell you, we're trendsetters, Katy. Here you are live with us. It's fantastic to share this forum with you.
It is indeed.
Going back to the beginning, so Ruth and I started life, I guess, out of uni. I ended up working in the pharmaceutical industry. Ruth was in the humanitarian sector. And this is a true story. I was working for a large British pharmaceutical company called GlaxoSmithKline. And they had sent us out to the former Soviet Union. So we were actually living in Baku, Azerbaijan. And Ruth and I were living in an ex-KGB building on the banks of the Caspian Sea. We'd just been married. And we were dreaming, as a young married couple of, thinking of the future, what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives. And sitting there in this ex-KGB building in this very dark Soviet, period, we said, not this. And so as much as we were working very hard in our evenings, we would read a lot about wine. We were very good at drinking wine, which is a very good place to start. So Ruth had actually, while we were living out there, had rolled in a distance learning course out of the University of South Australia. And they used to send books out to Azerbaijan. And so we started to get a fair amount of knowledge about the wine industry. And we having had a business background, we started to write a business plan. And we eventually did enough research that we'd, decided that there was nothing left to do really than to quit the day job and go on a sort of global due diligence course, looking at wine producing regions of the world. And the one thing that really appealed to us was New World winemaking, modern wine styles. And we'd actually totally discounted the old world. So the last place we thought we'd end up is in somewhere like France. And our concentration on was areas like Margaret River in Western Australia, Central Otago in New Zealand. But through a strange twist of fate, really, back in 2000, including 2001 and the Twin Towers, we had this calling, having been out in Australia looking for land to come back to Europe and look at what was possible here. And we kept on reading about this area called the Languedoc-Roussillon, which many of you will know. And the basic principle being that if there was anywhere in the old world you could do a New World project, it was in the Languedoc. So we came down to the area, fell in love with the area. The people were so nice, the area is so beautiful. And we found this amazing estate, way more money than we could afford. And this was back in 2001, 2002. And you know, that was our first, I guess, entrance into the wine world. So no looking back, and here we are, you know, I guess 20 years into this venture, and not only do we have an estate in France, but also in the UK. And of course, Eamon, you guys have been really helpful in helping us achieve that as well.
Okay, and Katy, Charles' brother, how did you get? How about your career before Noble Isle?
So I wanted to study fashion, and I was living in the States for 9 years and came back over to London to go to university, where I studied fashion buying and marketing. And after university, I went into the buying offices of some of the British high street brands like Oasis, Monsoon, and also Giorgio Armani in their buying office. And when I was doing garments, I started to do accessories, shoes, bags, fragrances, and gift sets. And that's really what started my passion in fragrance and the power that fragrance has over people. It can take you back to a place, a moment, a memory. And so I jumped out of the fashion industry and I went into the beauty and well-being industry. And I worked for 8 years at one of Britain's most well-known luxury bath and body company, where I was head of product development for 8 years. And, you know, businesses can become very big and corporate. And I had a real desire to go back to small business, progressive, creative companies where you can get really involved in the product and the concept and the branding. And so I left the corporate world, went and did some consultancy for some small British niche brands. And then one day, January 2011, I was called by an ex-colleague of mine who wanted to start a business. And that is how Noble Isle came to fruition. But it really was my desire to leave the corporate world, be an entrepreneur, and also my passion really to create something truly British.
Wow. Okay. Well, looking forward to hearing more about the products then in a little bit. But that's a great story. And then Charles and Ruth, how did you guys come across Naked? Probably sounds like when Katy was getting started, I think you might have come across us at that point back in 11 or 12.
Yeah, so I'll grab that one. So I remember the email to this very day, because it sort of changed our life, certainly for the better, was this very cocky email that I'd written to a chap called Eamon Fitzgerald at the time. And it basically went something along the lines of, you know, Charles and Ruth Simpson, we've been making wines in the Languedoc for probably 10, 11 years at that stage of the game. We're selling all our wines around the world, but we came across your model and we think it's fascinating. And so we'd like to try and liberate some of this volume that we're selling elsewhere in the UK to you guys. It was a slight exaggeration, but you know, there was a degree of truth to it. But genuinely, what really enamored us to the Naked model was this sort of democratization of wine purchases, where you know you don't need the master of wine, even though we've got one in Ray. You don't need the columnists, the journalists to be able to make a decision. It's very much about exploring wine as a tribe and finding like-minded people who like the same things that you do, and just basically sharing in a safe way, you know, wine. And so we could see early on that you guys were doing something completely different than anyone else. And I do remember the first Thirsty Thursday that we did on Facebook at the time, which was all done with typing. You know, just having this amazing interface with Angels at the time, where they got to ask questions of us and we were able to have a direct conversation with the end consumer about what they were looking for in wine. And it was so valuable. And I think we ended up putting together a couple of mixed palettes, Eamon, of wine we did from Sainte Rose. And shortly thereafter, and this was going back, I think it was 2011, so 9 years ago. And I remember I'd never met you. I didn't even know what you looked like, but you said you were coming down to the Languedoc to look for some new suppliers and wanted to come and see what we were doing. And I remember agreeing to collect you from Béziers train station. And the train came in. I knew that because I could see people coming off, and I parked up just next to the platform or the exit of the gare. And everyone went past, and I was looking for a guy like in a pinstripe suit or something, because that's what I associated with wine buyers. And there was this one chap left on the pavement, you know, wearing sneakers, jeans, and a rather tatty T-shirt with these big cask headphones on. I'm going, there's no way that's the buyer for Naked Wines. He must have missed his train. But all these people walking past me, and then I was like, excusez-moi, monsieur, vous êtes Monsieur Fitzgerald? He's like, hey, Charles, how are you doing? I'm like, no way. And so we took Eamon back to the domain and showed him around. And at the end of our visit, you know, Eamon sat down with us and said, okay, so I'd like to buy 10,000 bottles of this and 20,000 bottles of this and 30,000 bottles of this. I'd pretty much almost bought half our production by the time he'd left. And when I drove him back to Béziers, came back, Ruth and I sat round the dinner table with the kids. And I said, I'm sure this is a scam. I'm sure this must be some sort of weird pyramid marketing scheme. This guy's just ordered 50,000 bottles of wine. This must be a joke. And, you know, sure enough, about a week later, a prepayment came for the volume they'd committed to. And from that day forth, we stopped doubting and really believed in their model. And it's really changed the way, you know, we run our business, the decisions we make with greater confidence and knowledge of not only what the angels want, but more importantly, the backing of Naked Wines that is, you know, in essence, you know, owned and supported by the angels, and it's really transformed, you know, our businesses. So cheers to that.
Yeah, well, I remember that trip well, and yeah, having tasted the wines and talked to you on the original version of the 2012 version of Zoom, which was a very primitive text-based chat, and the version of this back in the day, but loving the wines, and then yeah, meeting you guys and kind of seeing your passion firsthand, and driving around the vineyards and tasting the wine from tank. I could see you didn't do things like maybe the conventional or the locals would do, and even stuff like, you know, when I remember you telling me when all the French went off on holidays in August and didn't touch a grape until September when they were back, when, you know, at which point, you know, your Sauvignon, which is beautiful and fresh, you know, if you started picking that in September, you'd be in serious trouble. So I was like, well, let's not take August off then, because, you know, so sometimes I think you pick that in July, don't you? So yeah, I knew kind of we were onto something different there, and yeah, no, it was a great trip. And then so that's your French adventure, and we've loved your French wines down the years. What brought you back to the UK then?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, ultimately 10 years on from down here setting up Sanfrose, we, you know, ultimately we're looking over the pond and beginning to hear about English sparkling wines and reading a little bit more about it, and realizing the opportunity that existed back in the UK, which, you know, a country that's, you know, that we never would have considered when we first started dreaming of our first project. And ultimately these sparkling wines were starting to challenge, you know, some of the champagne style wines, and ultimately with that, based on the knowledge that some of the terroir in the southeast of England is not just similar but identical to that of Champagne. It's the Parisian, it's the chalk, it's the Parisian basin, which dips down underneath the English Channel and gets pushed to the surface in the North and South Downs. Ultimately, why shouldn't England be able to create amazing sparkling wines? And sparkling certainly was the dream at that stage. So we kind of felt, you know, ultimately, if we thought we could manage two businesses in two different countries, why wouldn't we at least try investing in a little bit of land? And we started looking at land in the southeast. We would have gone anywhere. We would have gone to Kent, Sussex, Hampshire. Ultimately, chalk was the holy grail, though. We really wanted to find some land with chalk. And ultimately, in the early days, it was very much, well, you know, let's just wait and see. We weren't going to commit. But really, I think at that stage we saw that it was too good an opportunity to miss, and we should actually plant. And so we probably sleepwalked slightly into the business. It was a very step-by-step process, but and ultimately for us it was all about quality, and we knew that sparkling wine was the way to go. So we actually bought land. We bought 30 hectares or 90 acres of land in Kent. It turned out that the 2 blocks of land we found were the first pieces of land to be actively marketed as suitable for viticulture in England. And we went to see them, and they were literally, 2 idealistic plots of land, good slope, but you dig down about 30 centimeters, you're on solid chalk. And given we're just about 6 kilometers up the road from the White Cliffs of Dover, that tells you all you need to know. So we planted the first vineyards in 2014, and then 2016 and 17. Some of the angels and archangels came down to see some of the plantation happening. And our first vintage was in 2016, and that's, ultimately Naked Wines have supported us all along the way. They were part of our journey. They wanted to know what we were up to in England, and that's when you guys really decided that you were going to make a commitment and support us through that very first vintage. And because sparkling wine, the method traditional sparkling wines is such a lengthy process, and it takes such a lot of investment, having a partner again in Naked Wines was absolutely instrumental to our success.
And yeah, I think that tees up the next question nicely. So talk about that partnership, like Biora, what is Biora? How did that all come about? I think this is a true example of crowdfunding and customer involvement with the ultimate kind of expression of the naked community, I think. So could you tell us about that?
It was ultimately, again, in collaboration with you guys, we put out a proposal on the Naked Wines marketplace, and it was about it was a crowdfunding process, pre-buying 6 bottles of our Biora English sparkling wine from our very first vintage. So this is before we even picked any grapes in England. So talk about trust and commitment to people who you hadn't been working with for as long at that stage. It was truly amazing. So 1,200 angels signed up to this marketplace offer, which helped fund through our not only picking grapes but the vinification process, and then bottling, secondary fermentation, and aging over 2 years. And in return for that, those 1,200 angels were part of the process. They decided the final blend that went into bottle to become Biora after 15 months on lees. Then we put out a competition for people to choose the names. So we came up. We had a short list of names, and then those 1,200 angels voted for the most appropriate name, and it came back as Biora. Biora was the name of the Anglo-Saxon chieftain of our village where the vineyards are in Kent, called Barham. So very appropriate name. And then finally, the design of the label actually was the third sort of participation by the angels, and we put that out to a local the project and the brief out to a local art college in Canterbury, so just up the road from us. And so a local art student came up with the design, and it was actually symbolic of an Anglo-Saxon brooch, so all very, very nicely tied in. And so I think that student, she was first to get one of the early bottles of Biora. But it was a lovely project in that, very much the angels came with us on that journey, and it was no short-term commitment. It was over a period of 2 years. And obviously having that trust and commitment for what was our very first harvest in England was amazing.
Wow. And of course there was the event at the end as well, when customers turned up and were able to pick up the wine. And I know a lot of there's a few angels and archangels who popped in the comments saying that they were part of that initial run. So thanks to everyone who was involved there, and thanks to anyone who's bought it as part of the big Christmas case and supported the Simpsons in whatever way. So yeah, we did a little poll there while one of you was talking to see what people are drinking tonight, and 8% of people have got the Biora open right now. So I have a feeling a lot of people are keeping it away for the big day, but for the second biggest day, the Simpsons wine tasting night, Could you maybe explain to us, a bit like about the taste and everything about it, and then maybe for anyone that is stashing it away for Christmas Day, like what they might serve it with in terms of food or occasion or whatever you guys think.
Absolutely. So the classic Biora is a blend of 80% Chardonnay and 20% Pinot Noir, and which was what the original 2016 was. So we've tried to keep it very much in the same style. 2018. This is 2018 vintage. So and it is vintage. It's all fruit from that particular year. It was a slightly different year. 2018, it's been heralded actually as the vintage of the century in England. Not that they've been making great wine in England for 100 years, but it certainly was an amazing year. It actually started off with the beast from the east. If you remember, that was a very, very cold winter, but that meant that there was no issues with frost because it stayed cold during that process when the vines are dormant. And only began to warm up just as the vines were beginning to at the usual sort of time of year. So we had no issues with frost, which we had in the previous year. And so then ultimately the next critical piece is the flowering period. That's usually over the 2 weeks of Wimbledon actually, which is usually rubbish weather. But in 2018 it was amazing, very still, very stable, and beginning to get quite warm. So flowering is the critical piece when we have the fruit set and we begin to see what sort of yields we're going to get that year. And then most of you may remember it was a really warm summer. It was a lovely summer in the UK, and that carried on into the autumn, because we pick here at Sanfrose in August and beginning of September, and then end of September and into October really is the main harvesting period in England. And it was a real Indian summer. It seemed to go on and on. And so the fruits in England ultimately, usually English wines have really racy acidity. So actually building up decent sugar content is more of a challenge in the UK. But in 2018, we managed to pick up and develop a little bit more sugar. So it's about 12.5. This wine finished up at about, finally after the entire process, at about 12.5%. So it's a slightly warmer year, but then that's reflected in the fruit. It's got quite a warm, generous feel to it. But it's still, in that classic English style. It's got really vibrant citrus fruits. But then on the palate, you're beginning to get some nice lemon curd flavors, and because it's had 15 months on lees, you're beginning to get a little bit. It's got a really brioche nose, and that sort of autolytic character on the palate. So for the wine nerds out there, it's spent 15 months on lees after its secondary fermentation, and then it was disgorged at the beginning of July this year. So it's now had about 5 months on cork, which just allowed. Disgorgement is quite an unsettling process for the wine, so we always make sure it has 4 to 6 months in bottle under cork before people begin to drink it, so that it settles down and integrates. So ultimately, food pairing wise, ultimately, if you're going to drink it over the Christmas period, if you're doing canapes on Christmas Day, it's going to be beautiful with that. But actually, even with some, with actually some, if you're going for fish starters, poached salmon, or even, and even more exotic desserts like a kiwi pavlova, if you do, for desserts, it's really quite a versatile wine because it's got that, because being method traditional, it's got just that little bit more mouthfeel to work on.
Okay, wow, thank you. And Katy, you're one of the things I love about the goodies in this year's Christmas box. It's a real authentic kind of family affair here. And yeah, for your Noble Isle products, the ones that we have here, I think you're sharing in this great harvest as well. Can you tell us a bit about how you make these products from Charles and Ruth's grapes?
Absolutely. So obviously I've been following Charles and Ruth's story from France to England. Being an angel, I'm a natural wine lover. And in the beauty industry, grapes have been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So grapes are known as a natural antioxidant. They are a natural cleanser for the skin. You can use all elements from the juice to the pips to the skin. And so I was watching Charles and Ruth's journey, and I saw them look into buying the land in the UK. And it was at the same time that I was launching Noble Isle, and we were doing a press preview in the Langham Hotel in London. And I was thinking, well, we've got all this press coming in to introduce them to Noble Isle, a British brand. We can't be drinking French champagne. We have to bring in English sparkling wine. And so I could just see, I could start to see the demand, the desire for British wines. And as probably everybody knows, it's been served at both of the royal weddings in recent years. And whether you're in a lovely hotel or a bar, English wine is really, so popular. And so it was really watching Charles and Ruth, seeing this trend, knowing that grapes have been used, have so many fabulous skin benefits, that really inspired me to make this product. The other thing is with Noble Isle, we work with a nose or a perfumer to create our fragrances. And I was listening to Ruth talk about how she describes, all the lovely notes in the wine and the bouquet. Well, that's exactly how a perfumer would describe notes in a fragrance. So all of our fragrances have top, heart, and base notes. So like a perfume, they will reveal themselves with time, heat, and climate. And so that's really, when I thought about grapes, but also the environment that you normally see them grow in, beautiful rolling hills, all the herbs and the natural flowers that grow around the vines. I see a really beautiful picture, and I know that I could brief that into our fragrance house, and they would produce a really evocative fragrance. And so basically I created the fragrance with my fragrance house, painting them a story of how this should smell. And then I went down to Charles and Ruth's vineyard. I picked 3 different varieties of grapes, which is Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier, I always pronounce it wrong, and Pinot Noir. And I made them into extracts. And I worked with one of the oldest extracts makers in the UK, who started business in 1970, creating extracts for the Body Shop. And it's a process of keeping the grapes in a bath of distilled water and a glycerin substance. And you leave that for 10 days and it becomes an extract. And those are the extracts that go into my product. And that is how the magic is created.
Amazing. I see your dad is tuned in, Mr. Simpson. Hello. The radio family affair here.
See you in a few days. Be safe. Don't leave the house.
I hope you're drinking Simpsons tonight and not something else. And Ruth, you briefly touched upon the bounty of the 2018 harvest, and obviously, we know, maybe not some of the customers know about what happened the year before, and how 2018 was such a contrast. Tell us about 2017 and how that impacted your business and kind of the journey to this where we are now. Yeah,
thank you. I'll take that one. So one of the big issues, people talk about England being suitable for viticulture. It's very important to stress that only bits of it are. We are really at the margins of what is possible from a viticultural perspective. And one of the single biggest challenge with growing grapes in the UK is frost. And actually, one of the competitive advantages that Ruth and I have where we are in Kent is how far east we are. And actually, that makes us very warm. And actually, if you look at all arable products, whether it be grain, whether it be top fruits, whether it be apples, pears, etc., Kent was the Garden of England and is now the wine garden of England. It has this real great quality because you're on chalk, as Ruth had alerted to earlier, but it's also very warm. And that allows us not only to make full-bodied, full-flavored sparkling wines, but also we do a range of still wines. And I think Simpson's is getting a reputation for producing some of the best English still wines as well as our sparklings. And that's due to the fact that we are very warm. But that warmth also gives us a problem, and that is that what we're seeing year on, consistently, is that we're getting early budding, because all you require is the soil temperature to get to 14 degrees Celsius. The sap starts rising in the vine, and it starts budding. And the problem is, we thought that wouldn't happen to the end of April, beginning of May. And what we're seeing is that we're having these really warm late Marches, and we're getting budding in early April. So we every year have suffered with some degree of frost, and that's not going to go away. I think with climate change, you're going to see warm springs, but you're always going to get that frost in April. So what we've had to come to terms with is that we thought we had a frost-free site because we thought the budding would be later. What we've discovered is that frost is here to stay for us, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. So one of the things that we've employed is we have these great name, by the way, great marketing for this particular product. It's called a tow and blow, and it does what it says on the tin, really. You basically tow it behind your tractor out to the vineyard. It's got these big stilts that you put down in the vineyard, and it's like a huge hydraulic lift that lifts this big oscillating fan. It looks like something from War of the Worlds, and the cowling, the inside of it, looks like the size of a 777 Boeing 777 engine, and it's massive. And it sits up there. It's diesel run, and it basically oscillates and blows the cold air down the hill. So we have realized that frost is a problem. And to your point, Eamon, in 2018 was a fantastic year. 2017, we lost about 70% of our crop. So if people ever wonder why English wine, by comparison maybe to French wine, Italian wine, Spanish wine, or even South African wine, New Zealand, etc., it's because we're really on the margins of what's possible. Our yields are incredibly low, and we have a lot of more pressure from our climate than other areas are. So we have to account that every third year, maybe every fourth year, that we will have a particularly catastrophic frost, losing 60, 70% of your harvest. So we've really had to learn how to cope with that. And we think we've found the right solutions. The key is, again, planting on a slope, because Mother Nature helps you with that, gravity. But the fans really just help that process to push the cold air down the hill. So it is something that we learned the hard way, really. Growing grapes in southern France, we get 320 days of sunshine. We just don't have those pressures. And we've had to come to terms with that. So it's a new skill that we're learning, and I think we're coping. But every day you learn something new, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible knock along the journey. And then, so how is it in terms of getting this fizz in the naked case this year and booting out other maybe more famous places that make fizz? How is that meant? What was that meant for your guys' business this year and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, hats off to you guys, right? I mean, how many companies would do that? So, I mean, you guys are full of firsts, and here's another example of, your Big Inn, which sells 65,000 cases, which is extraordinary feat of its own, and people associate celebration with that famous, can I say the C word, and I don't mean COVID, champagne. A lot of people expect to see that, in celebrations at Christmas time. But as most people hopefully would agree with me that English sparkling wine is beginning to show that they can champagne. The reasons we've already described, with climate change, champagne's actually got too hot, dare I say that. And the reality is the key to a wine like Biora is its acidity, and acidity is directly related to a cool climate. And as the climate warms, unfortunately, the areas that are known for producing a method traditional sparkling wines get too warm. So we have a real opportunity to, that sweet spot that was sitting over Champagne is headed north up towards Kent. We think we deserve to be in that case and gazumping champagne. We couldn't have asked for a better year to do it, because let's face it, COVID has been a big struggle for a lot of people. And, I think it has brought home to roost how we have to support our local homegrown businesses. And I know what that tonight is all about, that, as Katy's example with Noble Isle and our example is, we're going to have to, stick together in all this and support each other. So it's amazing that Naked had the faith in us that they would remove a champagne from their case and put in an English sparkling wine. I just hope that everyone at home tonight agrees that Naked made the right decision to do it.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
And yes, so speaking of the year we've had, Katy, who'd have thought, when we were talking back in January about putting in this big order, soap probably behind toilet roll would become the one most desired item of the year. How's your year been in the grand scheme of things? And again, how's the Angels kind of support made a difference to you?
So it's been an incredibly challenging year. And I know everybody has been affected by this professionally, financially, emotionally, health-wise, mentally. So it's been a very, very challenging year on all levels. For my business, incredibly challenging. We supply hotels all over the UK, and we supply retailers, so bricks and mortar shops all over the UK. And of course, so sadly, many of those have been closed for, let's face it, most of the year. And, I feel incredibly bad for retail and hospitality, who have just had to close, reopen, close, reopen. And so, along the way, all of these partners of ours have become great friends over the last 8 years. And so it's been heartbreaking to see what their brands, their staff, all their suppliers have gone through. For us, it's been a major hit. But there's got to be a silver lining and some success stories within that. And so our retailers who had online presence have done really well. Obviously, I'm sure most people that we've all been shopping online. We have a website, and the beauty of our website is we get to tell our story and our provenance stories on our website. And so that has done really well. And our international areas, because obviously other countries are all doing different things with lockdown. So we have managed the storm okay. But, I must say that when you and I were talking in January, as you said, Eamon, the world was a very different place. And your order came in late March, early April, right as we were going into lockdown. And, it really was an amazing order to get. It really saved the day. And so I thank you, all the team at Naked, and all the Angels for believing in Noble Isle. It made a massive difference. So thank you.
Yeah, here to that. Thank you. Thank you everyone watching who's supported the guys tonight, for sure. Let's jump into a few questions, will we, from the floor, and people watching, if you've got any more questions, feel free to ping them up on the Q&A. First off, maybe Charles and Ruth, a lot of chatter about orange wine in the comments. Any people looking to try orange wine? What's your take on that?
Yep. So we love orange wine. We actually produce an orange wine. It's small amounts. We're doing about 1,200 bottles down here at Santa Rose. We love the idea of stripping things back and going more natural and then building back up. So for the last 2 years, we've done an orange wine here at Santa Rose, actually from Roussanne. Many of you will be aware of our low yield Roussanne that we do with Naked, and you'll see that there is that incredible sort of, positive oxidative character that almost gives you, that sort of honeyed aspect that you see in the low yield Roussanne, which goes really well with turkey. But also pushing another level with skin contact. takes Roussanne to another level. So we've experimented, and the fascinating thing is, guess where the demand is coming from? We've got the hipsters in Denmark who have encouraged us to do this for the last 2 years. So all of it is going to Denmark at the moment, to bearded Danish men and women.
Oh.
So the women have got beards as well, apparently.
Yeah.
So if that's something you would like to see, hey, listen, speak to the wine man. We'll do it for you.
Yeah, I think maybe, Dom, we need a poll. Should we all pressurize and bully Ray, the wine nut, into tasting Charles and Ruth's orange wine? We'll get that poll up and running and we'll see what people say. Peter Jordan asking, whereabouts in the Languedoc is your domain?
We're between Béziers, if you know the Languedoc at all, between Béziers and Pézenas. We're about 20 minutes from the coast and 20 minutes from the sort of foothills of the Black Mountains, just west of Montpellier. So it's a town called Servien. We're just on the edge of it, and bit of a Roman connection. There was a Roman settlement in Servien, and we actually have found Roman remains, including pieces of wine amphora. And those of you who know our English vineyard will know that we are, one of our vineyard sites is called the Roman Road, because that is up towards Canterbury when they invaded England. So we do have a bit of a Roman connection between the two vineyards.
Okay, great. Dan asking, we love Simpson's wine and live just down the road. Are they planning to open for any Christmas shopping like you did last year? It was great.
So the answer is we would love to be. Fortunately, Kent is in tier 3. And so we legally can't pour wine. So we, unless we provide a substantial meal, which apparently is also a Scotch egg. So maybe we could start doing Scotch eggs. But we are doing click and collect. But let's be honest with you. The whole reason you want to come to a wine domain is you want to walk around the vineyards, you want to see our winery, and you want to come down the helter-skelter slide. All of those things, unfortunately, are not particularly COVID friendly for the moment. So something to look forward to the new year. If you want to, place an order and come and collect it, but that's pretty unromantic and not really what it's all about. So we are open for business, and as soon as we can, safely get people, back into the vineyards. I mean, the great thing about vineyards is you are outside, and our row widths, gosh, weren't we clever? We planted them 2 meters apart. So if you take a row each, we can keep social distancing. So, watch this space. We will be doing tours and tastings as soon as we're legally allowed to do it. But the whole point is, the reason we want Angels to come on site is because we want to show you what we do. We love what we do. But it means, being in close contact, taking you out to the vineyards, walking you through the winery, up into our tasting room, tasting the wines, and ultimately down this really cool fruit chute. And it just isn't appropriate to do. But, we all know that a vaccine's on the way, and we look forward to doing that as soon as it's possible to do properly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 70% say yay to orange wine. So
oh, wow.
you know where Ray lives. You can pop a bottle in the post and tell them the Angels sent this. So yeah, looking forward to that. John and Durham asks, can you tell me about your sparkling red, please? Can't drink white wine, sparkling otherwise.
That's another naked request. I mean, ultimately, that was back in I'm trying to think the first year we did it, 2016, I think.
Yes, it would have been.
And that was, ultimately a lot. I think the Archangel Julie Bolton. I don't know if Julie's out there tonight, but I remember having a long conversation about how much she loved sparkling Shiraz from Australia, and that you've been speaking to Naked Wines for a long time about doing a sparkling red. So him and the wine guy came to us and said, how about it? And we said yes. So obviously it's a sparkling Syrah, and it's like Christmas pudding in a glass. What can I say? It's really fun to make, and it's exclusive to Naked Wines. We don't sell it anywhere else. It's especially for you. And the 2019 vintage is should be coming online very soon to buy. It's left here, so it should be in the Naked Warehouse and hopefully on stream soon to buy. So it's and I think for us it was a bit of a learning process because it hadn't been a style that we've been creating before, but it's been really fun, and I think it's been getting better and better each vintage that we do it, and so we think that 2019 is delicious. So I hope you do too.
It's fabulous. Just be careful opening it, right? Because unlike sparkling white or rosé, if it goes horribly wrong, it will stain the wallpaper.
Speaking from experience there, Charles.
Yeah, it does gush a bit.
Yeah. Gordon's asking, with all the problems with growing in Kent that you've alluded to, what are the advantages that outweigh this? So maybe recap again on the benefits of where you're located.
So was that related to COVID, did you say?
No, all the problems growing grapes in Kent that you talked about in 2017. What are the advantages that outweigh this?
Yeah. So the first thing to stress, which Ruth had touched on, is that we have not similar geology, we have identical geology to Champagne and parts of Burgundy. So the most coveted wine regions of the world are on chalk, and our terroir, our geology is identical to that. So we have the best terroir to grow fruit on. Our biggest challenge is the climate, as I've alluded to before, and frost. The really nice thing is, obviously making wine in France for 20 years, when we told our French neighbours that we had bought land in Kent and we were going to bring our know-how, our savoir-faire back to England and start making wine, they all thought we were bonkers. However, a relatively well-known champagne house called Champagne Taittinger, I'm sure a few have heard of that, bought land probably 4 years after us, about 10 miles away from us. And then all of a sudden, locally, everyone's going, God, wasn't that a good idea that you decided to buy that land in Kent? So we know we're onto a good thing. We are very warm, which is an advantage. As I said before, the disadvantage is that we get early budding and therefore we're exposed to frost. But not only do we believe we can make world-class sparkling wines, we also believe we can make world-class still wines from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So watch this space. Because I think you're going to begin to hear a lot about English still wines, but from the noble varieties like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and less so the Germanic varieties like Bacchus and Richtensteiner and Herxberger and Rondeau and et cetera, et cetera.
Great. And on that theme, Helen Burt asks, a long-term Noble Isle fan here, what's new for 2021?
Oh, excellent. So I don't know if you've seen, but we've just launched a Scottish collection called Scots Pine, which has got extracts from the Moray forest, which is Scots Pine and Heather. And we are going to add to that collection next year. We've got a shampoo, a conditioner, a hand lotion, a shower gel, and body lotions. And we're going to launch a beautiful botanical candle, which is a candle that is decorated with pine cones, fir and fern pines. So we're also going to launch a new fragrance called Lightning Oak, which is a lovely smoky Betty Bear based fragrance. And then we will launch new Christmas gifts at the end of next year. And ultimately, the aim for Noble Isle is a big request coming from our customers is that they would love to wear our perfumes as actual proper perfumes, so fine fragrance. So we would like to develop a fine fragrance range in 2022.
Great. So not much then. Anonymous asks, are Noble Isle products suitable for vegetarian principles, environmentally friendly?
Yes. So So all of our products are made up in Chester. So we're a British brand. All of our products are vegan friendly. We don't test on animals, so we're completely cruelty free. We don't put lamination on any of our outer packaging. So all of the outer packaging is recyclable. Our bottles are PET. So they are recycle number 1, so widely recyclable. And a big movement that we've done in the business in the last year is I've changed all the formulations to make them green. So changing all the base formulas, removing all the sulfates to a natural base. So we're really striving to be a much cleaner, greener brand.
Great. Great question here from CNY Profile. We have a 2016 Biora. Will it be okay because you're bigging up the 2018?
2016 will be fabulous. It'll just, you know, with a couple more years under cork, it'll be developing beautifully. It'll be really interesting to look at it now, because ultimately, you know, given those first investors had already, you know, funded our project for 2 years, you know, we wanted to make sure that they didn't have to wait too long before the wine, before they actually got their wine. But actually, a bit more time under cork is only going to do some good. And certainly, given the acidity of English wines, they're built to last. So, you know, it's going to last at least 5, 6, 8, even 10 years. It's difficult for us to absolutely guarantee it because we've only been, 2016 was our first harvest, so we haven't been at that game for that long, but certainly they're built to last, and it should be tasting wonderful.
And just adding to that, picking up on the acidity front there, Eamon, is that what I alerted earlier how obviously with the planet warming, it's not a good thing. Clearly, but that champagne's getting too warm. The issue about that warmth is that the reduction in acidity, and the acidity is that backbone that actually makes wine survive for longer periods of time. So in England, what you will find is that the wine's ability to age is actually, you know, we're like champagne were 90 years ago. So do not be fearful at all about a 4-year-old English sparkling wine. We've got legs to go lengths because of that acidity, that acidic backbone. In fact, if there's any criticism towards English sparkling wine, it is that, you know, there is this racy is probably the polite word, acidity that some people find too much, but actually that is the thing that will make those wines age so well and age elegantly.
Great. Jonathan asks, we love rosé wine. Can you briefly tell us the difference between Provence and Languedoc rosé?
There is none, other than the fact that one is grown in I guess the south east versus the southwest. So I mean, the Languedoc grows very similar cépage or varieties to Provence, and we here at Sainte-Rose and many estates in the Languedoc make rosé from Grenache, Syrah, Cinsault, and maybe even a bit of Mourvèdre. Those are really the 4 varieties that people use. So very little at all. The geology is similar. I think it's a little bit like, you know, what's the difference between a Volkswagen and an Audi, or an Audi and a Porsche? I mean, they're in essence made, you know, from the same ingredients, so to speak. It's got just slightly different badge on it. And as you discover in the wine world, there are pockets that, you know, are really good value, like the Languedoc, and there's areas that have more of a traditional reputation. So they command greater prices. But you know, in terms of style, in terms of quality, you can get the same thing. You expect me to say this because we grow grapes in the Languedoc, but from the Languedoc as Provence. Having said that, you know, we love Provençal rosé as well, but I think you can find equal quality in our part of the world for better value, as our personal opinion.
Okay, Kevin is asking a question about the difference between sparkling red and sparkling white. You know, why don't you see more maybe sparkling reds out there, and, you know, kind of, yeah, what are the qualities in the red versus the white?
No, I mean, if you're speaking specifically about the Languedoc, I mean, the Languedoc, apart from the appellation of Limoux, which has got has traditionally made sparkling wines, the Blanquette de Limoux, which is more of a Cremant style. The Languedoc isn't necessarily known for making method traditional wines, and for us, speaking frankly, again, it was a response to interest from Naked Wines, but also because we were already beginning to think about our English project, and we wanted to learn the process of making method traditional sparkling wines. So there's not a lot made in this area. And for us, the obvious choice, we grew Chardonnay anyway, so we wanted to use a noble grape variety and a traditional sparkling wine variety for our very first sparkling wine down here, but then ultimately again it was responding to demand. So traditionally you would in non champagne areas there would be more, I suppose, Chardonnay or white grape based sparkling wines, or red grapes that are picked very early and actually taken off their skins immediately, so they don't pick up color, like the Biora obviously has 20% Pinot Noir in it, but you wouldn't know it because it is a white wine. So you have to set about making a red sparkling, and it's just less traditional. I know that in Italy that there is some made as well. So for us, it was very much more about responding to demand rather than following tradition, and that's generally the way that we've always worked in the Languedoc. And
just adding, there's multiple different ways to make sparkling wine, and that everything that Ruth and I do, not only here at St. Rose but in England, is what they call method traditional, which is basically the secondary fermentation, the fermentation that gives the bubbles in the bottle takes place in the bottle, whereas you can actually carbonate wine like Prosecco, where it is actually like a soda stream, where you're just taking white wine and you're carbonating it. So even our red is made in the method traditional style.
Okay, great. Katy, you're an angel, I understand, for a few years now, enjoying all our wines. What wine will you be pulling out on the big day?
Okay, so I will be spending Christmas Day with Charles and Ruth, and so we will most definitely be drinking Biora for sure. But some of my favorite wines from Naked so far have been the Arabella. I'm a big fan of Kruger from South Africa, Oscar, and I can't remember the name, I'm sorry, but there's a lovely, I think it's only one of a kind, wine that you source from Greece with feathers on the front of the label, which I'm a big fan of as well.
Yeah, I think that's the Trupis, Janus Trupis Muscifilero.
That's it.
White wine, yeah. Great choice. And Charles, Ruth, how about you guys? Give me one Simpsons wine, maybe apart from Biora, of course. That'll be pride of place on the Christmas table, Christmas Day, and also a non-Simpsons wine that you might pull out from the rack.
So we actually we probably will have a low yield Roussanne, because our Roussanne always goes so beautifully with roast turkey and all the trimmings. So traditionally, I've always had Roussanne with our Christmas meal. But actually, but perhaps before that, we really enjoying Sébastien's Chablis 2019. He had one recently and thought it was absolutely excellent. So we might start with the Chablis and then move on to the Roussanne after that.
Lovely. I like the sounds of that. Okay, guys. Well, we'll leave it there. Katy, I know you kindly included this little leaflet in the product in the case, but in case anyone didn't get that, how can angels watching kind of find out more about you and support you? If you could let us know.
Oh, well, thank you, Eamon. So we've created a discount code, and we have actually extended it to the 31st of March 2021. So all Naked users can use it, and it's Naked 15. And that you can put that code in at checkout on our website at nobleisle.com.
Great. Is it too late to get a last minute Christmas present in, or?
Last orders are tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Well, you'll all been warned.
Get your orders in tomorrow.
And I think Laura asked, what is your favorite product in the range? Maybe outside of course, the Canterbury range.
So outside of Golden Harvest, my two favorite fragrances are Willow Song and Scots Pine. Willow Song is like a spring day. It is top notes of ivy and rose petal. It's green, it's fresh, it's got woody undertones. And Scots Pine is like breathing the fresh air when you're standing on the Scottish Highlands with a sprinkling of snow on the moors.
Wow, take me there. Sounds great.
So those
all
are
right,
my
guys.
favorites.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, Charles, Ruth, Katy, great catching up tonight. Thanks for our pleasure to receive these amazing products and get them out to many thousands of people out there in the UK and brighten up their Christmas a little bit, no doubt. So thanks for all your support this year, and really looking forward to more good times next year. So cheers everyone. Thanks all the angels tonight as well.
Thank you for all your support and for all the angels as well.
Yeah, our thanks too.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Cheers, everyone.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas,
Happy
everyone.
Christmas. Cheers, everybody.
Bye bye.
Take